The clink of fine china and murmur of refined conversation filled Bravura Bistro, where crystal chandeliers cast perfect light on polished silverware. But when the door opened that evening, bringing in a woman whose very presence seemed to dim the sparkle, no one suspected how their world was about to shift. Before we dive into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from. Marta Oliveira stepped into Bravura Bistro at 7:43 p.m., her modest black dress drawing immediate attention for all the wrong reasons. The fabric, though clean and pressed, bore the telltale shine of too many washes. Her shoes, practical flats that had seen better days, clicked softly against marble floors that reflected the chandelier's glow. "Table for one?" The hostess's smile flickered, her eyes scanning Marta's appearance with practiced efficiency. "Yes, please." Marta's voice carried a quiet dignity that seemed at odds with her appearance. The hostess led her to a small table by the window, the least desirable spot where kitchen noise competed with street sounds. Marta settled into her chair without complaint, her movements careful and deliberate. "Your server will be right with you," the hostess said, already turning away. Marta opened the leather-bound menu, her fingers tracing the embossed logo. Around. Her conversation hummed, deals being struck, celebrations unfolding, connections being forged over 100 real steaks and imported wines. "Good evening." The waiter appeared, young and sharp in his crisp uniform. His name tag read Lucas. "What can I get started for you?" "Could I please have the soup of the day and just a glass of water?" Lucas's eyebrow arched slightly. "Just the soup." "Yes, thank you," he made a note, his pen moving with exaggerated slowness. "Would you like me to ask the chef for a discount too?" The words carried across nearby tables. A woman in pearls glanced over, whispering to her companion. A businessman in a tailored suit smirked into his wineglass. "The regular price is fine," Marta replied softly. Lucas disappeared toward the kitchen, leaving Marta alone with the weight of curious stares. She folded her hands in her lap, studying the street outside where rain had begun to fall. "They see what they expect to see," she thought, "just like I once did." The soup arrived 15 minutes later, a small bowl of butternut squash bisque garnished with a single basil leaf. Lucas set it down with theatrical precision. "Enjoy your meal," he said, emphasizing the last word. Marta lifted her spoon, aware of the continued glances from neighboring tables. The soup was oversalted, the texture grainy, but she ate methodically, savoring each spoonful as if it were a delicacy. "She must have gotten lost," someone murmured, just loud enough to carry. "Probably thought this was a cafeteria," another voice added. Marta's hand remained steady on her spoon. She'd heard worse, endured more. These whispers were nothing compared to the gnawing hunger of her childhood, when her mother would water down their soup to make it last another day. 20 minutes passed. Marta finished her soup, dabbed her lips with the cloth napkin and waited. Lucas seemed to have forgotten her existence, attending to tables where wine flowed freely and tips promised to be generous. Finally, she caught his eye. "May I have this?" "Check, please." He approached with visible reluctance. "Certainly, that'll be 48 reais." Marta reached into her worn leather bag, a gift from her mother, carefully maintained over 15 years, and withdrew a small envelope. She placed it on the table beside her empty bowl. "Thank you for the service," she said, standing. "Have a good evening." Lucas barely glanced at the envelope as she walked toward the door, her steps measured and unhurried. The rain had intensified, drumming against the windows, but Marta didn't quicken her pace. Behind her, Lucas picked up the envelope with a sigh. "Probably exact change," and he muttered to a passing colleague. He tore it open carelessly, then froze. Inside was a certified bond for 50,000 reais and a handwritten note on simple stationery. "For the times, I couldn't afford a meal, and no one made me feel ashamed. May this remind you, the person who orders the least may have walked the longest to get there." "What is it?" The manager, drawn by Lucas's strangled gasp, took the envelope. His eyes widened as he read. "Get her back," he commanded. "Now." But Marta had already disappeared into the rainy night, leaving behind only questions and a profound silence that settled over the restaurant like a shroud. The manager read the note aloud to the gathered staff. Forks paused mid-air. Conversations died. The woman in pearls looked down at her plate, suddenly uncomfortable. 50,000? Lucas's voice cracked. But she only ordered soup. She ordered dignity, the manager said quietly, and we served her shame. That night, as the restaurant closed, the staff gathered in the empty dining room. The certified bond lay on the bar, untouched, as if it might disappear if anyone reached. For it, we can't keep this, the head chef said finally. Not after... After what? Lucas challenged, though his bravado had evaporated. After I treated her like she didn't belong here? After we all did, the hostess admitted. I sat her by the kitchen on purpose. The manager picked up the note, reading it again. She knew exactly what she was doing. This wasn't revenge, it was a lesson. But why leave so much money, Lucas asked. Because she could, the sommelier said thoughtfully. And because the amount forces us to pay attention. A normal tip we'd split and forget. This we'll remember. They voted unanimously to create something lasting with Marta's gift. Not a plaque or a trophy, but a living reminder of their failure and her grace. The Marta table was born that night, a quiet corner table, the best in the house, reserved daily for someone who might need a meal without judgment. The 50,000 reais would fund it for years. 3 months later, Bravura Bistro had transformed. The atmosphere remained elegant, but something fundamental had shifted. Staff moved with purpose rather than pretense. Kindness had become as essential as culinary skill. Lucas, now lead server, had developed a different eye for guests. He noticed the small things: worn cuffs hidden under sleeves, carefully counted bills, the hesitation before ordering. On a grey Tuesday afternoon, the door opened to admit a young woman clutching a thin coat against the cold. Her eyes darted nervously around the dining room. Welcome to Bravura, Lucas said warmly. Table for one? I'm not sure I can afford... We have a special table available, he interrupted gently. No charge. It's called the Marta table. Her eyes filled with tears. Really? Really. Someone who understood hunger made it possible. As he led her to the corner table, the one with the best view, where raindrops traced patterns on the window, Lucas glanced outside. For a moment, he could have sworn he saw a familiar figure in a modest black dress, watching from across the street. The figure smiled, then turned away, disappearing into the afternoon drizzle. That evening, Lucas found himself thinking about transformations, how a single moment of grace could ripple outward, changing everything it touched. The young woman had ordered the soup of the day, eating it slowly, savoring each spoonful. Before she left, she'd asked about the table's name. Lucas had told her the story, watching her eyes widen with each detail. She sounds incredible, the cute woman had whispered. She is, Lucas agreed, though we never really knew her at all. Back at home, Marta sat at her own simple table, a bowl of soup before her. Beside her plate stood a framed photograph, her mother, smiling, ladle in hand. They're learning, Mama, she said softly. Just like you taught me. She'd read about the Marta table online, seen the pictures of grateful diners, the testimonials from people who'd been welcomed without question. The money hadn't been important. She had more than she could ever spend, inherited from a grandfather who'd built a fortune she'd never flaunted. What mattered was the change, not just in the restaurant, but in the hearts of those who worked. There. Her phone buzzed. A message from her assistant at the food relief organization she'd founded 5 years ago. Another restaurant wanted to join their network, inspired by the Bravura story. Marta smiled, remembering her own words from that rainy night. The person who orders the least may have walked the longest to get there. She'd walked that path herself, from hungry child to secret philanthropist, from shame to purpose. Now others were walking it too, guided by a simple truth. Dignity costs nothing to give, but everything to lose. The next morning, Lucas arrived early for his shift. The Marta table stood ready, its single-place setting arranged with extra care. He'd started leaving a fresh flower there each day, nothing expensive, just something beautiful. As he adjusted the napkin, the door chimed. An elderly man entered, his clothes worn but neat. I heard, the man began hesitantly. I heard there's a table here where everyone belongs, Lucas finished. Welcome to Bravura Bistro. The Marta table is waiting for you. As he led the man to the corner, Lucas felt it again. That shift in perspective that had begun 3 months ago. Every guest was a story, every order a chapter, every meal a chance to offer not just food but respect. The morning sun broke through clouds, illuminating the table where the elderly man now sat, menu in hand, dignity intact. Outside, the city rushed by, unaware of the small miracles happening within these walls. But Lucas knew. The staff knew. And somewhere in the city, Marta knew too. Sometimes the smallest gestures, a bowl of soup served with kindness, a table offered without judgment, could change everything. Sometimes the tip that spoke loudest wasn't made of money at all. It was made of understanding. In a world quick to judge by appearances, Marta Oliveira had delivered a masterclass in humanity. She'd turned a moment of casual cruelty into a movement of conscious kindness, proving that true wealth isn't measured by what you can afford to order, but by what you choose to offer others, especially when they need it most.